3 days prior to Christmas in 2022, as Denver's streets glimmered beneath a delicate layer of snow and the soothing sounds of soft jazz filled the air. As holiday classics floated through the air from passing cars, my world quietly unraveled with a single note. As I entered my one-bedroom apartment near Capitol Hill, fatigue washed over me from yet another grueling double shift. The phone call awaited me, a reminder of the world outside my weary existence. The community clinic, my fingers felt numb, my breath still fogging in the icy wind. I kicked off my boots and peeled. I removed my navy scrubs and let out a sigh as I took in the sight of the small suitcase resting by the door. A pine green scarf, neatly folded, rested atop a carefully assembled collection. Each wrapped gift, a testament to thoughtfulness and intention, awaited patiently beside it. Like quiet tributes, I recalled the nutmeg. I would even seek out the precise toffee my aunt had once cherished. I was certain I had done everything correctly once more, yearning for this year to be the one where I finally proved myself worthy. As my phone vibrated, Julian's name illuminated the screen. My older brother responded with a mechanical smile, "Hey, Jules." Yet his tone lacked warmth. It was, "Hey, Lena, just a quick heads up. Marina will be joining us for Christmas this year." I paused to consider his new girlfriend, the one who practiced sound healing and had once saged the room. The living room, a space where I shared my experience in palliative care, became a focal point for her. She placed great importance on emotional alignment as he continued to speak. "The energy you bring from the clinic can be overwhelming for her, so I considered the possibility that perhaps this year you might want to take a step back. You understand, don't you? It's nothing personal." I found myself gazing at the mithomorphistel. The blinking lights on my thrift store tree flickered and dimmed, a moment devoid of sentiment. Before I could gather my thoughts, my mother reached out to her. Her voice was a blend of sweetness and strength, a gentle reminder that all we truly seek is peace, as you well understand. "Marina is quite sensitive. Your presence might create an awkward situation, to be honest. If you decide to show up, we might not open the door. No falsehoods, no sweetened omissions, just rejection." Delivered with a surge, I remained silent. I neither shouted nor cried, nor did I plead for inclusion. I stood there, phone in hand, gazing at the small gifts I had wrapped, my heart trembling with hope for those who had never created room for individuals who acknowledged my absence solely when it disrupted their ease. And this, at last, I allowed that silence to convey my thoughts. I moved with intention, each step measured and purposeful. As the final chairs were folded away after an unseen funeral, I opened my laptop and accessed my bank account. The automatic transfer intended to cover my parents' overdue property tax has been canceled, halting the once steady monthly deposit into Julian's startup. The fund has secured the car insurance plan for which I co-signed on behalf of my father last year. Terminated. I felt no anger, merely a sense of completion. For so long, I had held onto the belief that if I gave, adequately remained beneficial, consistently arriving with casseroles and tranquility, that I would come to deserve a place at the table. Not merely in a physical sense, but also emotionally and spiritually. I believed that being reliability transformed me into a necessity, yet within that comforting stillness enveloped by the scent of cinnamon, scented air, and the gentle murmur of my aging radiator, the truth descended softly like snow. It was never a matter of celebration. I was merely permitted until the moment I was not, just beyond my window. The initial flakes descended, gentle and assured, enveloping the city in a serene blanket of white silence. I gazed through the glass, a wave of unexpected relief washing over me. No longer will I exert myself to blend in. No more will I seek permission. No more will I shrink away or tiptoe around. No more will I ask to simply exist. This Christmas, I refuse to be the outsider, pressing my face against the window. I would not be the nearly sufficient presence they recalled only when something required mending. I once believed this was the norm. How certain children basked in the spotlight and tenderness, while others were anticipated to serve as steadfast, supportive fixtures silent. I was the eldest, the rehearsal, as my father would often remark during our cookouts, the child, striving to gain affection through acts of usefulness, while Julian, at just 5 years old, navigates his own world. He was the miracle baby, the charmer, the dreamer who chose to skip rent in order to fund his aspirations. In the pursuit of his band's third album, ambition drove me to take on an extra shift at the hospital. Once again, I found myself overextending my limits. He recalled the days of spray painting abstract shapes on the garage wall at 15, when his parents dubbed it passion art. They chuckled as I accidentally dropped a casserole dish 2 days later, only to receive a lecture on the matter. In high school, I once filled out an FAFSA application and carelessly left it on the counter for my mom to sign. I even emphasized how she never inquired about it when my acceptance to medical school came through. I brought it home, a trophy of sorts. She glanced at it and muttered, "That's intense. Just don't lose yourself in it," she said, before returning to her task of chopping celery. When Julian made the decision to drop out of school for the third time to embark on a journey of launching a healing podcast, they were greeted with a warm welcome back. A dinner illuminated by candles and accompanied by wine, adorned with balloons, a cake, and even a framed photo. Julian clutched a paintbrush, still hanging in the front hallway as if it were a sacred relic, in the very same house that had never hosted a single graduation party, seemed to resonate with pride for the son who had yet to secure a stable job in ill. Years ago, I stumbled upon one of my old sketchbooks, its pages half filled with doodles created during hospital breaks, hastily scribbled in moments of fleeting inspiration. Scenes of Denver sunsets and patients' hands, mid-recovery, intertwined in the thought of the recycling bin, hidden beneath takeout, minis and expired coupons. When I inquired about it, they shrugged, laughed, and remarked that they believed it was merely scrap paper. Perhaps it truly was in their eyes. Perhaps I was too passive. I continued to be present throughout medical school and residency. Amidst the graveyard shifts, I found myself in hushed chambers where few doctors chose to remain, surrounded by the remnants of time captured in fading photographs. Whispers of regret linger, accompanied by the ache of abandonment. This is precisely why I chose the path of geriatrics. I glimpsed my reflection in those long-neglected corners where individuals had bared their souls, existed in the shadows, only acknowledged when the fabric of our lives unraveled. My presence felt only in moments of disruption. In that moment, I became the steady presence, the silent supporter, mending the fractures that threatened to unravel everything. To prevent further damage when the roof began to leak following a snowstorm, and the insurance company rejected the claim I had paid for. In silence, as Julian's freelance work dwindled once more, I sent money without probing for details regarding my mother's situation. Her hip began to lock once more, and the physical therapist ceased visits due to unpaid bills. I made a call to reschedule, enveloped in coordination. Driven by my affection or perhaps by my lingering faith in love was an exchange. A reward attained through sacrifice that they never expressed gratitude, though it was unnecessary. Their love remained unvoiced, was taken for granted, much like gravity or daylight, and each time I relinquished a they took a piece of myself, not out of malice, but rather in a blind manner, never once considering the impact. For years, I pondered the cost of it all, believing that this was the essence of family, unseen yet vital, akin to scaffolding, crucial, yet never the concentrate. Yet that evening, following the calls informing me that I was not invited for Christmas, something within me broke. I understood that scaffolding is not intended to suffer. For the constructing, it stands firm as I finished observing my existence diminish to enhance theirs. If this narrative strikes a chord with even if it's just a tiny bit, don't forget to subscribe. There's much more on the horizon, and believe me, the next part is when everything unfolds. Transpired when Julian, in a moment of spontaneity, acquired a new collection of vintage lenses for his documentary project, leaving him financially strained. On his Thanksgiving flight home, I purchased his ticket once more, and he embraced me at the gate, referred to me as the best sister in the universe, and by the following week, it was overlooked, yet another favor tucked away meticulously in the unseen account I inhabited, never meant to acknowledge. No one needed to inquire. I was perpetually one step ahead, as if by instinct, an unseen specter within the intricate mechanisms of their existence. mending and concealing, silently gliding, unseen yet indispensable. They never uttered a word of gratitude. Perhaps it is the very essence of gratitude that complicates the act of relying on another without hesitation. I convinced myself that this path was simpler. Gratitude illuminated your presence, and those who are illuminated can be scrutinized or cast aside. Thus I vanished behind the dry wall of their solace, the concealed being that remained unbroken until this moment, sometimes after a grueling 12-hour stretch. During my shifts at the hospital, I would find myself seated by the window, a cup of peppermint tea in hand, lost in contemplation about the essence of simply existing. Perceived not for what I might mend or afford or keep intact, merely perceived not as a stemars idea. The backup plan, not merely a framework, but rather akin to Lena. Such contemplations were indeed luxuries, and longs for dreams meant for golden boys with sketchbooks, not for girls burdened with tax software and heating bills that compelled me to persist. I brought the bread pudding every Christmas, the occasion that brought joy and smiles, as they got joy and smiles. Inquired once more who created this. It drifted in on a festive breeze, just as Julian's rent came up short. I sent the money without hesitation, silently. As my parents reached out, bewildered by their WUAs, I remained on the Doemrain past midnight, guiding them meticulously, line by line, while my own taxes sat patiently in a neat pile. An unopened pile rests beside the fridge. Oh. Silent testament to my belief that love is about presence, about being there, consistently unraveling all challenges, envisioning a day when I would bear the weight, sufficient weight for someone to pause, and finally notice me beneath it. Yet still upright in my small kitchen, the phone lingered with warmth from the call that had exiled me from Christmas for being too much, a realization settling in. It was preferable that they remained unaware, not due to indifference, but because I had never requested that they adhere to the training I had instilled in them. That evening, with the scent of cinnamon lingering in the air, air and snow drift down like a gentle absolution beyond my window as I reach for my phone. Refraining from calls, resisting the urge to plead, I quietly accessed my banking app and pressed cancel. $8,000 that I had been sending each month to keep their mortgage afloat is now gone. Emergency savings secured. No more unexpected repairs, no more interruptions in the midst of it all. In the depths of winter, Julian finds himself grappling with the predicament of a lifeless car battery, a challenge that looms ahead. Initially, it seemed mechanical, just a series of taps to cancel the auto transfer and conclude the payment. Authorization, freeze, joint access akin to the routine of brushing my teeth or settling my rent routine. Yet with each click, an odd stillness blossomed within me. Not numbness, not bitterness. It felt like freedom. A bird stretching within me. Wings dry and tentative. I realized the cage door had been left ajar this whole time. And I opened it. I opened my notebook and crafted a list. Not to burden myself with guilt, but to acknowledge all the silent debts I carry. Had accepted in silence the departures, the unexpected operations, the setbacks, inspects the stranded vehicles, the multitude of crises I had mended in the shadows, the scenes unfolded devoid of gratitude, stripped of formality, the ink smudged not by sorrow yet. Beneath the burden of finally confronting my own fatigue, I found no anger within me, regardless of how they might later interpret it. Lena's demeanor is frosty. She always carries an air of intensity. No, I wasn't angry as we, and the thing about being invisible for so long is that people only seem to notice your absence when things start to unravel, like missed mortgage payments. The payment would only feel burdensome when the final notice arrived. The canceled maintenance fund would become irrelevant until the pipes began to fail. Once more surged in January, Julian's performances would continue to ebb and flow like the tides. Yet this time, there is no net below him, no silent sister weaving it all into place with love and bank wires. I made no announcements, no dramatic Exits? No. Mysterious Facebook updates I haven't even shared with Aunt Ramona, the sole one who still I sent out birthday cards in elegant cursive. And just now, I disconnected the half-finished Christmas message I had penned, wishing warmth and warm. Affectionately, I removed it. The small tree I had positioned in the corner. I disconnected it. The soft glow illuminated the carefully wrapped presents, and with a sense of purpose, I slid them into place. The hall closet, its shiny paper now appearing utterly absurd against the backdrop of my resolve. I did not weep. There was simply no space for such emotions. In moments of sorrow, one seeks understanding. Love should never resemble the burden of an unremunerated task. Family ought not to resemble a subscription laden with concealed costs. I had devoted decades striving for what should be inherently mine. Have been freely bestowed, yet silence does not equate to love, and utility does not reside in a home brimming with illumination and clamor, far removed from the heart of the city. They laughed without me, and for the first time, I allowed it. I permitted them to build their celebration of the illusion they had meticulously crafted, the one in which I was the problem, the one where my silence was seen as resentment, my distance as accusation, where I bore the weight one, the intricate one, the one who never truly aligned with the shimmer of their curated holidays. For the first time I failed to appear. And in that moment, on Christmas morning, I found myself reclaiming something I hadn't even realized I had surrendered. Soft and gray, the Denver skyline lay cloaked in fog, with snow clinging to the roofs like a delicate whisper. Forgotten frosting the silence outside, mirrored the silence within as I sat by the fore. The window enveloped in my cherished blanket, it sent a gentle whisper of rosemary and solace, cradling a steaming mug of cinnamon apple tea cradled in my hands, the steam rising like a whisper from the past. I didn't light the tree. I refrained from pressing play on the meticulously crafted holiday playlist that once filled the voids. I didn't reach out. I didn't. I was simply quiet, the whole world still around me. The presents I had wrapped sat untouched in the corner, colorful and cheerful, yet a touch naive. They appeared foreign now, as if they belonged to another time, was once held by one who clung to the notion that effort ensured connection. Yet that morning was devoid of sorrow, devoid of pain. No tears, only a profound stillness, a sacred cleansing stillness, akin to the breath that follows a long pause scream like the wind after a tempest. I hadn't recognized the extent of the clamor I'd been carrying until it vanished. Time flowed differently that day. Noon slipped by like a whisper, devoid of calls or the usual background clatter. From my parents' kitchen, there are no festive selfies from Julian and Marina accompanied by hashtags celebrating joy, nor any Venmo requests for unexpected holiday costs enveloped me in silence. I felt no inclination to break it until, as evening descended, the sky transformed into a bruised shade of purple. My phone buzzed once, then once more, 3 times in total. Initially, I dismissed it, thinking it was likely just a group thread. From work, I had forgotten to mute, but then a message illuminated the screen. Ramona, your actions have caused enough harm? I was not even present when the damage occurred, yet it has left a lasting impact. My phone rang. Her name illuminated the screen once more. I answered, my voice gravelly from neglect. What transpired was met with a gentle tone, as if she were delicately approaching something fragile. They're saying you ruined Christmas, she said quietly. But Lena, you weren't even there. The words struck me like ice, and I blinked. How does one go about ruining something to which they were never invited? She paused, her thoughts scattered, before she began to piece together her explanation in disjointed fragments. It seems that, not long after dinner, Marina, with a wineglass in hand, began to admire. She paused in front of a faded family photo on the mantel, a slightly crooked snapshot from a birthday party long ago. I must have been 11 or 12, caught mid-laugh in a too-big the maroon sweater, one sleeve nearly engulfing my hand, as Marina tilted her head squinted slightly, and then she spoke with her head squinted slightly. Clarity, ensuring that everyone in the living room could hear her words. That's Dr. Lena Morgan, isn't it? Aunt Ramona nodded slowly. She was the one who sat with my neighbor through the night, truly transformed her existence. The atmosphere changed, and laughter abruptly ceased, as if someone had pressed pause, had flipped a switch. Forks hovered midair, glasses ceased their clinking. Julian. My mother's smile turned to ice, and I went pale as Marina glanced from one face to another, questioning. Wait, Lena's your sister, the one you talk about? There was a pause, a moment of silence that hung in the air, but no one responded immediately. Whatever was uttered, whatever half-truth or evasive remark followed, was sufficient. Marina collected her belongings, expressing her gratitude with a politeness so keen it could slice through glass, and exited with a grace that mirrored her resolve. By the time Aunt Ramona reached out to me, the ripple had already started. I shared a few straightforward thoughts, nothing groundbreaking, just some candid reflections expressed in a few incisive lines about how families reshape individuals to conform to more appealing narratives regarding how silence serves as a means of an eraser, reflecting on the harm inflicted in spaces adorned with cheerful images of individuals. You imagine a world where I remain unseen, unaware of I remain unseen. The precise phrasing. It was unnecessary for me to grasp it. I simply could envision vividly the collision of the carefully crafted image, the family and friends deciphering the nuances, the artistic circles in New York, a small and gossipy town. The subtle unraveling of a brand founded on charm unfolds quietly. For once, someone outside of that world had taken notice of the exclusivity, not someone who had been raised within its confines. An individual conditioned to perceive harshness as love, a person who had witnessed me not as a weight, yet as a person, a healer, a sibling, a comforting presence that evening. Seated there, in the quiet solitude of my apartment, I discovered a truth more potent than any retort. Sometimes, the most piercing reality is the silence that lingers in the wake of Christmas, a haunting echo of what once was, marks the beginning of desperation. Seeping through the finely polished fishes, an email bore the title "Let's Reset Things." It resembled a corporate memo, bland, polished, and devoid of substance, jointly signed by my mother, my father, and Julian, as though a semblance of unity could erase decades of division. No genuine apology, merely discussions of amidst the heightened emotions of the holiday season. Stress often looms large, yet the true essence lies in valuing family, even when it feels buried halfway down within the chaos. I discovered the genuine request. Would it be possible for me to contact Marina to clarify matters and ease any tensions? Not due to their longing for my presence, nor because they have come to a realization, but rather because Julian's artistic journey teetered on the edge. It was never about me, nor had it ever been. Only a reflection of the chaos my absence had created, a mirror they could no longer face. They hadn't reached out due to a longing for my presence. Rather, they had come to understand that the price of my absence had escalated beyond their expectations than they were prepared to offer. I chose not to respond that evening as snow murmured against my windows. My phone buzzed once more. This time, it wasn't family. It was the hospital administrator, David Reynolds, a man I had encountered only once at a charity gala, kind. His eyes locked onto hers, and with a firm handshake, he spoke with a hint of hesitation. "Lena," he began, it was an awkward moment, but I received a call from your father." He cleared his throat before continuing. "He expresses concern for your emotional well-being, sensing that you may have been under stress recently, and could benefit from some time to yourself." Off. My blood transformed into ice, not the sort that numbs, but the kind the concern my father sharpens into a hardened weapon. The man who once chuckled at my intensity, claiming it was excessive, now wielded that same quality to portray me as unstable. Not because he truly believed it, but because he thought it would dominate me, rattle me, frighten me into silence. It didn't work. David perceived the truth, articulated it plainly, yet the intent was unmistakable. They were not in pursuit. In their quest for reconciliation, they sought leverage, but that endeavor faltered. The subsequent maneuver unfolded as a meticulously crafted smear campaign. Whispers exchanged in group texts, murmurs to cousins and distant aunts. "Lena's simply on her way. She is currently navigating a challenging period." retreating into solitude as the weight of her emotions becomes too much to bear. The mention of Christmas, devoid of any exclusion, merely transformed into a concern. A cousin I hadn't spoken to since Julian's first art show reached out unexpectedly, saying, "Hey love, if you ever in search of a rejuvenating yoga retreat, I find myself with a discount code, yet feeling overwhelmed by the polished offerings that await." Manipulation, each act of betrayal cloaked in feigned concern, only intensified. My it became evident that their intentions were not to shield me, but rather to safeguard their own narrative, the one they had constructed. Julian, the brilliant heart of our family, while I remained the silent support, never stirring the waters. But now, I had reached my limit. As the snow continued to fall gently outside, it smoothed over the landscape, erasing the footprints of every path I had taken. I diminished myself for them, and for the first time, I felt no desire to amend it. There is no need for me to justify my actions, nor to confront you with the truth. However, that was not the conclusion of the matter. Never does one engage with those who presume they have a right to your silence. It arrived next, cloaked in gentleness. My fool. The sound of my mother's voice drifts softly outside my door on a tranquil Sunday in mid-January. A time when winter settles deep into my bones. The chill pressed against the windows as if it were inhaling. While I sat at my desk as I charted the patient notes, a mug of tea sat forgotten beside me. It was then that I heard. There was a gentle knock, and I remained still, simply attuned to the steady rhythm of my heartbeat, calm and unwavering. Then I rose, walked to the door, and peered through the peephole. There they were, my mother, my father, Julian, all bundled up, in coats, smiles stretched thin, a picture-perfect apology framed in desperation. I hesitated at the door, unwilling to open it just yet. Fear eluded me. Instead, I was enveloped in a profound, detached sadness that ached within me. The sensation that washes over you when you come to terms with the fact that the rescue ship you have been yearning for, the one you envisioned for years, was merely an illusion. The horizon. I opened the door, a fraction just enough to allow the cold to seep through the crevice, and bite at my skin, not quite enough to extend the invitation. My mother spoke first, her voice gentle and rehearsed. Enveloped in "We just want to talk," she said, her grip on her purse tight as if it contained all the answers. The precise words. I remained still. I held back a smile. I did not yield, for I perceived it distinctly. Their presence was not for me, but for the former iteration of myself. The one who clung to the hope that love was something to be deserved. The girl who diminished herself, folding into a smaller and smaller version to fit into the yin and feeny spaces they provided. That girl no longer resided. Silence expanded, filling the void. Amidst the fragile tension and clamor, I observed my father's jaw quiver, a brief spark of annoyance flickering in his gaze, as Julian moved restlessly, shifting from one foot to the other, as if his sneakers could elevate him off the porch altogether after a moment of discomfort. I offered them the only word that held significance. No. No. Speeches devoid of justifications. No bridges constructed from my own splinters. Only the absence of my mother's. Her expression was a blend of confusion and disbelief, as if she struggled to comprehend that the steadfast support she had relied upon for years had ultimately fallen away with a gentle motion. I eased the door shut. No loud bang, no declaration, merely a line drawn in the sand. Adored it. With unwavering hands, I listened to the ebb and flow of hushed voices outside, first imploring, then more intense, tinged with the frustration of those unaccustomed to denial. Yet I remained resolute. I turned away and returned to my desk, settling into my seat. I encircled my fingers around the mug of cold tea, allowing the silence to envelop me. Something sacred rested on the shelf beside me. A framed letter from Marina, the ink slightly smudged, her words lingering in the air, handwriting pressed with intention and care. I gazed upon it and felt worthy in that moment of weightlessness. I reflected on the countless years I had devoted to shaping myself into the daughter they desired. I commend how I absorbed their guilt, their silence, their neglect, and transform it into energy to continue my presence. I was never destined to reflect, always meant to embody their pride or to embrace their disappointment. There existed something more, perhaps, At long last, that was sufficient. They lingered for a moment, and I could hear the sound of shoes. Whispers intertwine in a desperate dance, curling at the fringes, when suddenly another knock breaks the silence. Gentle Lena, we simply wish to converse. I remained in my seat, the framed letter from Marina anchoring me, my tea cold, bitter, and strangely satisfying. I let the fall, though the knocking persisted until it dulled, then ceased, and silence enveloped the space once more. Not empty but brimming. With the first time I grasped that forgiveness doesn't necessarily entail reopening the door. At times, it signifies the decision to refrain. At other moments, it embodies the strength to stand resolute amidst challenges. The very individuals who once fractured you now expend their energy futilely against the boundary you have finally summoned the strength to construct. A barrier constructed not from resentment, but from a foundation of self-esteem. Time slipped away, perhaps longer than anticipated. Then came the shuffle of retreating footsteps, the dull clunk of car doors, the hesitant hum of the engine. They were silent and unspoken. I stood and moved deliberately to the window, drawing in the stillness around me. I pulled the curtain aside just enough to catch a glimpse of the taillights disappearing into the snow-dusted street. I remained still, unflinching, my hands resting at my sides. For my phone, I felt no urge to chase after them, no deep longing to mend what they had shattered. Their silence, revealing only tranquility, true tranquility, the kind that sinks profoundly within your chest when you cease the pleas for a place at a table that was never prepared for you. Turned away from the window, my soul. The apartment exuded warmth now, devoid of noise and brightness. The Christmas tree lingered in the corner, its lights dimmed, and unplugged ornaments remained untouched. Yet the scene no longer bore a sense of sadness. The wrapped gifts still lingered in their place, but no longer symbols of rejection. They became reminders that I had tried, that I had loved, that I had offered the finest fragments of my being with open hands. Yet, they never truly recognized it. I prepared another cup of tea, this one more robust than before, allowing the steam to envelop my face. As I wrapped the blanket snugly around my shoulders and made my way back to my desk, the letter from Marina caught the afternoon light. You made a difference, she had written. You didn't give up, you made her. It felt as though she held significance. My fingers grazed the frame, wooden, imperfect, yet undeniably solid. The cool glass felt smooth against my skin, undeniably real and unshakable, even in your presence. If your family fails to recognize your value, there will be others who will, those who are genuine and true. As I watched, memories flooded my mind of all the years I had spent contorting myself to fit, and at last, I came to understand that I was never destined to be diminished, not for them or anyone else who sought to confine me. The door hadn't been an act of cruelty. It was clarity. They hadn't come because they loved me. They came because they required the calm, reliable version of myself that had vanished. Yet the girl had vanished, replaced by a woman who had at last discovered the essence of love. It does not seek your love, silence, nor does it require your sacrifice, and it never, ever implores you to shatter just to keep someone else whole. I sat back, sipped my tea, and watched the snowfall descends, a silent cleansing enveloping me. I came to understand that, perhaps for the very first time, I had liberated myself. I was free. Days drifted by, each moment unfolding softly, akin to deep breaths taken after a tempest. The silence enveloping everything. It lingered, a sensation of isolation, an expanse I had never been permitted to explore. Before returning to work, I made my rounds at the hospital, where I took the time to sit with patients whose families arrived bearing flowers and cards, contrasted with those whose rooms remained silent, save for the soft hum of amidst the machines. I found solace in my quiet presence. I listened, I remained, and I engaged in the work that unfolded before me. Mattered the kind that remains unseen, that doesn't fill glossy photo albums but weaves the fabric of lives together yet. On one particular afternoon, a small package arrived, devoid of any return address, simply my name, elegantly inscribed in neat, slanted lettering on the brown paper, awaited me as I opened it with care. It was thick ivory stationery, the ink slightly smudged at the edges. From Marina, she penned a reflection on her grandmother, who continues to embrace the practice of yoga. Twice a week, she still strolled to the farmer's market every Saturday, a memory etched in her mind. Described the moments when the world had subtly begun to lose faith in her, and how there was one doctor who remained after visiting hours, who provided care. Her as an individual, not merely a patient, a woman still capable of joy, still deserving of with dignity. You didn't merely save her life. You reminded her that she was still here. As I sat there, I read the letter 3 times, my fingers tracing the words with a delicate reverence. That night, I carefully framed it and hung it above my desk, where the morning sun could gently caress it. It serves as a quiet, enduring reminder that I was never invisible, never excessive, never a burden. I was precisely the person I was meant to be all along, and their failure to recognize that is telling. The burden was never mine to bear. Weeks later, another email arrived, less refined. In this moment of urgency, we find ourselves longing for your presence. Our intentions were never to cause you pain. Is there a chance for us to begin anew? Hidden towards a conclusion, much like a shard embedded beneath the surface, emerged the true motive. Do inquire, Marina should remove her post, Ethan is struggling to find work, and it's impacting his future. No apologies, just action. Remorse, merely another transaction, another debt they expected me to settle to maintain the peace. I didn't respond. Some bridges don't require rebuilding, and some doors, once closed, remain that way. Closed doors are intended to remain so, not out of animosity, but rather from a place of self-respect. As the evening settled in, I organized my notes at the desk, the sunlight casting a warm glow over Marina's letter. I leaned back and closed my eyes, savoring the moment. For the first time in years, I felt complete. Not due to someone finally affirming my worth, but because I had ceased to seek. If my story struck a chord with you, I would be delighted to hear your thoughts. Please feel free to leave a comment and share your reflections. Which aspect resonated deeply, or perhaps just acknowledge my presence, for in that recognition, we may find a shared understanding. Others, you are not alone. If you have ever felt overlooked, as though you must earn love through silence or sacrifice, please know this, understand this. You have every right to occupy space, to assert your boundaries, and to express your refusal. We have the right to construct a life that excludes those who appear only when it serves their interests. Let us begin to embrace peace.